Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Renee, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about burning bridges. So to begin with, what is burning bridges? And it is ultimately a skill of radical acceptance, commitment, and action, all directed towards never engaging in the addictive behavior, in a specific addictive behavior again. The action component in it refers to actively cutting off and removing from your life all connections to potential triggers for addictive behavior. So you burn the bridge to addictive behavior so that this behavior is no longer an option available to you. So, for example, imagine that you're in front of your house and a huge elephant is closing in on you. You race into the garage and slam the door shut. The elephant now is on the outside, you are on the inside. As long as you stay inside, the elephant can't harm you. But what if you've left the garage door slightly open at the bottom? Just enough for the elephant to get its trunk in and lift up the door. What then? The elephant will get to you. Or what if you're curious and hit the garage door open just a little to see what's going on? In comes the elephant. Wham! Burning bridge is like going into the garage of abstinence and slamming the door shut in front of the elephant. That's our addiction. It is slamming the door down hard and not wavering or even considering opening it. It is shutting your mind to addictive behavior. It is putting up an iron wall between you and the addiction. What happens a lot of the times is that you're still curious to see what the elephant is doing. So you don't close the garage door completely, or you decide after a while to open it just a little. However, as soon as the door is opened even a little, the elephant can get its trunk in and open the door. So how do we do this? What's the steps that we have to take, or we should be taking towards moving towards burning bridges? First, and most importantly, it's the idea of absolute commitment. So first, make an absolute commitment to discarding all threats to abstinence. Walk into the garage of abstinence and slam that garage door shut. 2. Now make a list of all the things in your life that make your addiction possible. This is where you have to be completely honest. Holding back is only going to keep that garage door open for you. Next, we're going to get rid of all these things. Consider getting rid of some of the things you might not have thought of before. So think about phone numbers, email addresses, and other contact information of people who aid in your addiction. Think for yourself, well, was social media something that influenced or impacted my life? Was it a way for me to bridge that gap towards facilitating my addiction? Clothes, maybe even items in your household that are associated with communication of addiction, whether it be like lighters or maybe specific types of foods that are associated so directly or so heavily with your form of addiction for yourself. Think about it in terms of like Oreos, maybe it might be pizza, drinks such as alcohol, coffee, magazines, items on your computer even, or even specific websites on the internet or documents you may hold, applications on your phone, videos, specific types of music, songs, the use of tobacco, and so on and so forth. But it's this extensive list that I'm providing. It's finding ways in which seeing what specific items, as small as they may seem, aided me or helped me in facilitating my addictive behavior throughout time. So as you continue to make this list, it's so important to list and do everything that will make it hard or impossible to continue your addictive behavior rootlessly and at every moment. Tell the truth about your behavior. Because again, if you're being honest, you have to be honest. Denying stuff is keeping that garage door slightly ajar or leaving it slightly open for possibilities. Tell your family and friends that you've quit abusing substances as well. So, to begin with, let's take a look at today's worksheet. So ideally what we're going to do is that we're going to take about 5 minutes for you to go through it on your own and check the things that you think might potentially work for you. Think about, some of the items in your life that make your addiction possible, and check those that you think you could get rid of. List things that are tempting to you, like whether it be people, websites, contact information that you need to continue your addictive behavior, and check those that you can erase or otherwise get rid of. Next, I want you to continue to list all the things that make your addiction possible, that make your addiction impossible for you. Okay, so let's come back in and let's check in. For yourself, what were some of the items that you checked off? What were some of the challenges that you experienced being completely honest about items that will work for you? Did you experience any hesitation on your end? Did you have the experience of leaving a bridge intact towards addiction that could contribute to relapse? What are some of the challenges associated with burning bridges for you? What are some of the things that can get in the way for you burning bridges? What were also some of the benefits? What were some of the positives associated with burning bridges? And how, looking at this exercise, how did you see it stopping your addictive behavior? So, as we talked about, burning bridges, the next step is also the idea of thinking about new bridges. So as we burn old bridges, we want to move towards building new bridges. And building new bridges is the strategy of actively imagining as vividly as possible through visual images and smells that compete with those that are associated with our addictive behavior. So why is this so important, or how is this even helpful for us to begin with? Well, research has shown that people who crave an addictive behavior start experiencing images and smells in their minds that are linked to the addiction. The more they focus on the addiction images, the more the craving increases, and the more difficult it becomes to resist engaging in addictive behavior. What this means is that the systems in our brain that are responsible for visual and smell are loaded with information when a craving occurs. So if new images and smells compete for the space with that information, the craving can then be reduced. Actively imagining images and smells that are very different from the addictive one competes for attention with and decreases the power of the craved images. And for example, I like to think of it as, say, maybe you might have a craving for, say, alcohol, where maybe maybe the idea, or like you picture that bottle in your head, but associated with that bottle might be, specific type of soda that you used as a chaser for it or whatever. And as you think about these addictive images over and over, you feel this heightened need to crave this the alcohol more and more, and it feels more and more impossible for you to change that addictive behavior. So the idea is as you think of maybe the alcohol butter, or maybe even the soda associated with it, maybe you smell like the ginger ale bubbles, or you see the bubbles in your mind, it's countering that with something that it's absolutely not associated with those specific images, and finding something, whether it be pleasant for you, that you can now change to replace that, or to compete with those senses that are in your mind. So maybe it might be for you, instead of thinking of like alcohol and soda, maybe you might be thinking about a specific smoothie that you like, that just makes you feel anxious, and it's associated or affiliated in your mind with some of your values that could be, healthy behavior, living more in a healthier lifestyle. So it's things like that, where it's thinking about, even as you think about, replacing the visual images with something else, or even like thinking of different senses, or sense, I should say, to attribute it to, it's for yourself thinking about how is it important or how does it relate to you, and not just choosing things that are more vague or has less meaning to you or in your life. Okay. So how do we do it? How do we build new bridges? The first step is, you want, like I said, you want to create new non-addictive images and smells to think about when you have an unwanted craving. These need to engage in both the visual and smell systems of your brain. And so, it has to be able to steal the space from the craving. So for me, like in this picture that I specifically chose, I thought of pizza, just looking at or thinking about like a nice slice of pizza and seeing, like, visualizing in my head, like, that melted cheese, and seeing like the little oil even on top glistening on the pizza. And it's thinking about these things where you really want to create as vivid as possible of an image, and just smelling the garlic on it and like the Italian seasoning or whatever. Being able to really truly engage in those senses, like I said. Two, you also want to look at moving images and surround yourself with new smells. So when you have a craving, looking at moving images or surrounding yourself with smells that are unrelated to addiction, because these will compete with information associated with your cravings. So, for example, when you crave chocolate, looking at a moving image of something that will engage the visual part of your brain. Or you smell something that you find pleasant, but that isn't chocolate, such as perfume or pine needles. And for myself, I thought, well, what's something that, it's a scenery or a place that maybe could engage both at the same time? And I like to think of the idea of even just looking at the waves, smelling the sea breeze, the sea air, and looking at the movement of the waves as they crash on the shore. So it's seeing things that, again, because again, I'm going to continue to highlight it, where so often we're able to list these different skills or visual images, but it's finding ways to make it personal and finding ways to make it, pertain specifically to you and what brings you joy or what brings you pleasure, and what is not affiliated specifically with your form of addiction. And then urge surf. So urge surfing. And the idea behind this is that the urge is the wave. So instead of trying to stop its movement, you surf on top of it. The key to urge surfing is stepping back and not reacting. Notice the urge moment by moment, particularly how, like a wave, it evolves and shifts over time. Imagine yourself on a surfboard riding the waves. Keep this image in your mind to help you remember that urges don't last forever, and this urge will go away as others have done before it. And just to sort of round things up, for homework to think about over the week, going back to like the bottom half of the worksheet, think of and describe imagery to help you reduce your cravings. Check and describe each strategy that you've used during the week that to help you resist your urges. And talk a little bit about, how did it work for you? How was it helpful, or maybe not even so helpful for you? But the idea is going back to the first concept, where it's like, again, that honesty, being honest with yourself and being honest on areas that were actually beneficial towards you, as well as areas that were not as beneficial for you. Okay? All right. Thank you, guys.